The car came to a slow, rolling stop next to the curb as Nat let out a long sigh and gripped the steering wheel even tighter.
Just keep driving.
Some part of her begged, but she knew already that that wouldn't happen. She turned the key and the engine stopped. It had to be done, she knew, and if she just drove off like that, it would be her head on the chopping block next. There was no escaping her boss. Not in this town, state, or even country. He would send people after her, and they would find her, sooner rather than later. If she bailed on her life completely, left everything behind, switched cars, and had a new identity ready, she might be able to live maybe another year before someone caught up to her. That was just what it was like. Nat heard the door on the passenger side opening and closed her eyes while she sighed inwardly. He really had come. Liam, her junior partner this past year, the one who she had taught everything about this line of work, from intimidation to execution. Why? Why had he come? Hadn't he noticed that something was off? She had made sure to give him hints in that last message, telling him to meet her at their normal pickup spot. No guns needed this time. That should have set off alarm bells in his mind. She had told him a story just like this about how someone else in the organization had been taken out. Then why was he here? She looked over and could see his dumb, friendly face as he leaned down and smiled at her so brightly.
Warm night, huh?
Nat knew that she should just play along, but for some reason she had grown incredibly close to this idiot in the time they had spent together. Was that some kind of maternal instinct? She wasn't sure. It wasn't like she had or ever even wanted to have kids in the first place. But the young guy already slipping into the passenger seat had taught her what that might actually have been like.
Hot and humid. Just how I hate it.
She replied, suddenly feeling this tension in her chest. Why? 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 The question she wanted to ask seemed to multiply in her mind. Why had he done it? Why be so stupid and steal from their boss? Liam must have known how this would end, right? Then why come here? Why get into her car? If he had just run off, at least he would have spared her from having to end this partnership with her own hands. He was smiling softly as he put his ass into the seat, pulled shut the passenger side door, and then even reached for the seatbelt. Nat was staring at him incredulously. She felt her hand trembling softly as she watched him look straight ahead, out of the windshield, with no sign of any trouble on his mind. He really wasn't aware, was he, that tonight's target was him. Nat felt her lower lip trembling ever so slightly. Part of her still wanted to warn him, but she knew that that would definitely come back to haunt her. Then, what should she do? Scream at him? Tell him that he had forgotten something and send him away? Hope that he would finally realize and start running? The gun in the holster beneath her jacket felt so heavy tonight.
Everything okay with you? You seem kind of nervous.
The man said while turning his head to give her another smile. Nat could feel her eyes grow wide. Did he really not know? Or was he playing a joke right now? Whatever the case, it wasn't like she would break her own code to interfere here. The orders were absolute. There was no getting around that. So, she just shook her head, turned toward the road, and started the engine again. Nat gripped the steering wheel and brought the car back into the slow and sparse traffic in this godforsaken town so close to the desert. Tonight, there was no music inside the car. She knew she wouldn't be able to think if some pop song blared right in her ear. and she needed to. It was important, part of her told her. They drove along the main road, behind one of those old, beat-up trucks the locals love to drive around in. Nat still couldn't make heads or tails of Junior's behavior. She had taught him better than that, this voice whispered in her mind. And she wasn't just talking about today. Why would he break into the boss's storage, alone and at night? Why not tell her about it? Well, that question she could actually answer. He knew she was loyal. If he had told her, she would have slapped him, then beaten that dumb idea out of him before he could do something as stupid as that. How could he even get that idea? He must have known quite a bit about that place, too. It almost felt like he had scoped it out for months. She remembered thinking when one of the people above had sent her the video of that one security camera. She had watched it, had looked at Liam's form on the screen, breaking into the place, disabling all the other cameras. And even back then, she had felt chills in anticipation of what would be asked of her soon. Now, that dreadful day had come. But at least the boss had allowed her to take care of it quickly, cleanly, and on her own. What he had done was dumb, yes, but everything would be okay if he simply disappeared out there in the desert. No need to make a public example out of him, no need to involve anyone else. This would be a cleanup, quick and easy. She felt her hand trembling again, sweat building up on the steering wheel, making it slick.
Hey, everything okay, Nat?
His voice sounded strange to her ears. Far too friendly, with not a hint of suspicion in it. Like an amateur, this part of her judged. No, he wasn't that dumb, right? She had taken him under her wing and had taught him everything one needed to know to succeed in a place like this. Then why? Anger was building inside her again. She wanted to slap him right now, drive over to the side of the road, pull him out, and give him a beating. But she couldn't do something like that. If anyone from the organization got wind of that, they would question her loyalty as well.
Man, looking at that piece of garbage really takes me back. Didn't we follow one of those trucks on our first outing?
Nat smirked and felt the weight of the gun at her side again. Why did he have to sound so normal?
You almost threw up during that ride. 3 times. But you grew into the job quickly.
She tried to keep her voice steady and casual, but Nat could feel her own chest tightening at the memory. He had been so green, so scared at that first outing. The one where someone hadn't paid what was owed at one of those backroom casinos. They had followed his car for almost half an hour before it finally stopped, and Nat had taught her fresh colleague what to expect in this line of work. The screams, the crying, the sound and feel of breaking bones. They had let the man live, of course. Dead people don't pay anything back, and the money owed had been pretty much nothing at all in the grand scheme of things. But it had been a good way to start off someone new. Liam had handled it well, she had told her superiors later, and had left out his throwing up behind the dumpster, bloody knuckles still shaking like a newborn calf. A slight smile appeared on her lips and then vanished the next moment. She wanted to ask him why he had stolen from the boss. Almost every single part of her mind screamed at her to just pose the question. But she couldn't do that. If he jumped out of her car then and there, it would be her fault. People would start questioning her loyalty. And that would end with her out in the desert, looking at a hole just big enough for her own body.
I've learned so much from you, Nat. Thank you, by the way. I know I wasn't the easiest to teach.
She couldn't stop herself from snorting out a laugh. What was he on about now?
You actually were, Liam. It was a blast.
Yes, when he had started out, he hadn't known much. But to his credit, he had learned incredibly quickly how things were handled here. He had never shied away from the uglier sides of the business, nor had he shirked responsibility. Nat had taught quite a few people, but Liam had been the first one she could have given all the dirty and exhausting parts to without getting a single word of complaint back. That was why she felt the way she felt right now. He had betrayed their boss, the whole organization, even her. There was only one punishment fitting for such an act. Nat cursed in her mind. This idiot had grown on her. The truck in front changed lanes, then turned off the main road, leaving them completely alone. Nat didn't speed up or slow down. She kept driving just as before to give herself a few more seconds at least. The sun had set already, and the town looked almost abandoned. Wouldn't it be quicker and easier if she just drove to the side of the road right now and told him to get her something out of the back seat? She could draw on him and kill him in a second. No, that idea was stupid. She would need to clean up the car, then get the body out of town anyway. Even thinking about something like that was insane, but this part of her wanted to get it over with as quickly as possible. Maybe she was afraid of losing her nerve if this went on any longer. She wanted to deny it, but knew deep down that she was scared of what was about to happen. Driving him out into the desert, making him kneel in front of the hole, then giving him a quick and easy death. Would he beg her not to do it? Probably. Once he realized what was about to happen, he would. They all did. Every last one. It was only when they felt that it was inevitable that they calmed down. Their rapid breaths got slower, their bodies relaxed. Nat felt her own heartbeat racing as she imagined Liam kneeling there, staring blankly at the dugout grave while waiting for her to end his life. There was a knot in her throat as she saw the scene in her mind. The cursing got louder and louder in her head. Why hadn't he picked up on any of the clues? Was he really still under the impression that no one knew about his break-in? She shot him a glance and could see that he was still smiling, still looking ahead, while he was almost lounging in the passenger seat, completely relaxed. The first sign for the last gas station before the desert came into view. 2 minutes until they passed it by, and then officially left civilization behind. If that town could even be described as such, she thought with a sad smirk. All the drugs, the prostitution, the gambling and violence. It was nothing but a black hole, sucking in people and spitting out money. Nat groaned slightly and felt Liam's eyes on her the next moment.
Don't you sometimes wish you could just up and leave?
She felt herself scooting back and forth on the seat, her body growing more and more restless by the minute. The man sitting next to her laughed, then shook his head.
Where would I run to? The boss would kill me and I would have to leave you behind, right?
Nat felt the tension in her chest constricting her heart.
Really? You don't say.
She wanted to scream at him, but kept those words as far away from her tongue as possible.
Yeah, but if you had already done something stupid, wouldn't it still be better to at least try to run away instead of ending up dead, out there in the desert?
She shot him an intense look, still searching for any sign that the man was getting what she had just said. But his smile never wavered.
You absolute idiot. They know. Run.
Those words as well stayed in her mind instead of getting screamed at the man sitting in her passenger seat. Nat saw him shaking his head softly, then turning away to look out of the window at his side.
We've got 3 of those in the last months, Nat. They all had the same idea. But we caught them and made them disappear. There's no running away, is there?
For the first time, she thought she could hear the sadness in his voice. Did he know? If he did, then he hadn't just realized it right now. There was no shock or fear, at least not anything she could notice in his body language.
Yeah, but we wouldn't make those same mistakes, right? Going back to your place or hitting up friends. That is so amateur. You know, I bet we wouldn't have caught a single one of them if they had, I don't know, jumped out, then stole a car and drove off without looking back, leaving their phone and credit cards behind.
There was the gas station just up ahead. The words, "last chance," were visible on the billboard. Nat begged the man in her mind as she put on the turn signal and slowed the car down. She noticed him staring at her openly now and gave him a quick, silent nod.
You know, I'm so tired right now. Would you mind going in and getting me a coffee? If you want to, you can also hit the John. I'm sure it will take me at least half an hour to wake up again if I close my eyes even for a moment.
Nat looked at him, nodded softly once more, and could see him doing the same back at her. He unclipped his seatbelt, opened the door, and the warm air streaming in cooled the sweat on her skin. She could just pretend to sleep for half an hour. By that time, he should already have left the town behind and be on his way, right? What would her superiors say? They would be fuming, she was sure. There would be a price to pay, but at least it wouldn't be her life. Maybe someone would rough her up, or they would simply dock her pay. Whatever it was, she was sure it would be less of a drag on her conscience than killing Liam. Even if he had betrayed the boss. She just hoped he would make it, even if she was pretty sure that he wouldn't escape for long. Had that just now been a mistake? No. Giving him more time was important, yes, but what had really messed with her mind was the prospect of taking him out herself. She didn't even want to think of doing that. Nat kept her eyes closed and let her body sink deeper into the seat. If anyone passed by, they would just see a sleeping woman behind the wheel, resting her eyes in the gas station's parking lot. Nothing to see here. The air inside the car already felt less stuffy now. She could breathe easier. Of course, Nat would need to act panicked when she called her superior to tell him that Liam had jumped. She would have to come up with a decent enough excuse and then promise to follow him immediately. Maybe she could even be on the way back to his apartment when she called. It would show initiative, which was something her superior liked. Liam wouldn't be dumb enough to stop there, right? That would be the worst thing, especially after she had told him not even 5 minutes ago to leave everything behind. He was a smart kid. He would figure something out, Nat told herself, then opened her eyes as someone knocked on the passenger side window. Startled, she turned around and looked right into the smiling face of Liam, staring at her through the glass, motioning for her to open the door for him. Nat felt sick to her stomach. The air seemed to turn into liquid smog as she tried to take a breath. Why? Almost in a trance, she leaned over, opened the door, and watched him hop in, handing her 1 cup of coffee while holding onto the second one himself.
Black, but with sugar, right?
Nat was still trying to make sense of it. He wasn't that dense. What the hell was happening here? She put the cup of coffee into the center console, then looked at him again. The man was still smiling, nodded at her, then closed the door and put on his seatbelt again.
We should drive. It's getting late already, and we really don't want to screw up this job, right?
Nat's mind was racing, but she was already starting up the car again. If he didn't want to run, there was nothing she could do, right? She would need to follow through after all. Natalie felt the weight of her gun again, gave off a long sigh, and steered the car back out and onto the road. Even if she was cursing internally, She couldn't simply let him go now.
Everything okay?
The man next to her asked, then took a big sip of his coffee. She didn't want to answer. Instead, Nat began breathing deeply and calmly. This time, she would need the same tips she had given him when he had started out. Control your breathing. Concentrate on something simple. Steady your nerves. They passed by the big signboard informing them that they had just left the town and were heading out into the desert. At least she could make it quick for him, she promised in her thoughts. If he really had no idea what was about to happen, she'd make sure he wouldn't realize until the shot rang out. What a horrible way to end the partnership. The man put his coffee cup next to hers in the center console and started fumbling around in his jacket. 2 quick movements, but they were all she needed to see to immediately react. He was pulling something out from beneath his right arm, where his holster would be. She had told him not to bring his gun. The metal flashed in the light of the small overhead lamp, and Nat felt herself getting pressed into the seat as the car accelerated. She knew he had to drop on her if it came to guns, but there was no way in hell he would shoot if killing her meant crashing the car.
Hey!
Liam suddenly shouted.
Calm down!
Nat gave the road ahead a quick glance. It was running straight into the desert. There was no other car up ahead. Good. She looked over at him and could see the gun in his hand.
I know what you said, but I brought it anyway. Look, it's okay!
He grabbed it, ejected the magazine, then pulled back the slide. Empty. Nat still felt the adrenaline pumping through her veins, but her foot left the accelerator. What was he doing right now? She still couldn't make heads or tails of it.
I know where we are going. I know what you're about to do.
The man continued, then showed her the magazine. It was empty.
I brought it along just in case. You know, if you needed some motivation.
She felt this cold chill running down her back as she looked in his eyes. He wasn't joking.
You'll take one of the next few off-roads, right? The grave is probably a few miles in.
Nat was still staring at him, but now she angled for her own gun, pulled it out, and kept it in her hand. Part of her still warned her that he might be playing games. Liam threw his gun into the back seat, then dropped the empty magazine into the cup of coffee.
I'm not going to fight you if that's what you're afraid of. To be honest, I thought about running away back there at the gas station. It's not like I want to die, but I need to do something. Can't you feel it?
Nat let the car slow down to almost a crawl. He was imploring her with his eyes, but her mind was still focused on the task at hand.
There's something wrong with the boss. You know it too, right?
Without her turn signal, Nat steered the car off-road and onto one of the countless small paths leading off the street. Dust rose in her headlights as the tires met dirt instead of asphalt. Liam didn't lunge for her. He was as calm and collected as before. Then why those games?
What do you mean, wrong?
The man looking at her was shaking his head.
How many times has the police raided his businesses? 12 times these past few months. Then what did they get? Pretty much nothing.
Yeah, he has informants.
Nat replied.
Well, everywhere. Local, state, and federal. You think they would be able to warn him every time?
Nat was concentrating on the road again. It looked like the man wasn't going to stop her. At least she hoped he wouldn't try.
Every deal he does right, every time another group tries to butt in, they all die.
She was shaking her head now.
That's why he's the boss. It's just instinct.
Now she heard the man next to her chuckling. But there was no humor in his voice.
He always knows where everyone is. No one escapes him, right?
Nat was still shaking her head.
He has connections. That's all.
6 politicians died in the past year. All of them were in his way, and their deaths were either ruled heart attacks or suicides.
Natalie didn't reply. Whatever Liam was now trying to sell her, she wasn't buying it. Messing with the boss was always a bad thing, and she didn't know of even a single case where anyone got away after doing so. She glanced over at the man, and now found him staring out into the desert, his hands behind his head.
I knew he was filming in his storage, and I knew what I would find,
He said, then turned his head, and Nat felt his gaze.
and I knew how they would react. He told you to kill me out there and bury me, right? No big show of making an example of me, nothing. Just make me disappear, right?
Even though she didn't want to, Nat nodded solemnly.
The boss has called on something evil, something ancient. It's helping him for now.
The dirt road they were driving on was leading them deeper and deeper into the desert. No one would find the body out there.
But one of these days, whatever he called on will demand something more than whatever he's giving it now. It will devour you all.
Now, Nat couldn't help but look at him, even if it was just for a moment. There was no smile on his face and hardly any sign of fear. He looked almost peaceful in his delusion.
And I assume you want me to stop him, huh? Let you go and lie about your death so you can ambush him?
She could see him close his eyes, then shake his head.
Well, that will be suicide for both of us. He knows that if you don't kill me, and he won't let either of us get close to him. No. I will die tonight, Nat, and you will be the one to do it.
Natalie wanted to roll her eyes, but the tone of his voice made her shiver. She had never before seen anyone about to be killed be this calm, this collected.
Then what do you want me to do if you don't want me to let you go?
He sighed, then cursed as the wheel hit a pothole that made the car shake. Nat got out her phone and looked at the screen openly. The GPS was showing her where the grave was located. If he already knew what would happen, hiding it from him was unnecessary.
I want you to do your job. But you have to promise me something, Nat. For all time's sake and for your future.
His voice had this strange ring to it, as if he were honestly expecting her to believe him. Well, she still hated the idea of having to kill him, but if he was already trying to make it easy on her, she could at least hear him out. Natalie nodded, then slowly started to take her foot off the pedal, since the destination was already up ahead.
Just take a trophy with you. I have this old necklace around my neck. Make sure there's blood on it, then take it off my corpse. Deliver that to one of the superiors, but not the boss himself. He might actually realize what's going on and kill you if you try.
Nat put her foot on the brake, made the car stop, then turned off the engine. Really? A bloody necklace. That was what he wanted? She could do that easily enough, though. With a nod, she opened her seatbelt, then waited for him to do the same. Part of her was still worried about him carrying a second gun, so she grabbed hold of hers and watched his every move. His hands were shaking. There was sweat running down his neck. His breath had become irregular, and the skin looked even paler than before. It took him 3 tries to open his own seatbelt, and then the car door at his side. Nat followed on her own. A part of her hated what she was about to do. His knowing and going along willingly was making it worse. If he had been crying and begging for his life, she could have rationalized taking him out a bit more easily. He would have been just as much of a sniveling coward as all the rest. No, that was a lie as well. She might have actually let him go. Part of her knew. Killing someone you liked was hard, even for her. She watched him take a deep breath, then come around the car to the front.
Just up ahead,
Nat told him. He didn't react to her voice. His legs were unsteady, his breathing quick but shallow. The open grave was 10 steps away, and now she followed close behind him. Nat felt the drum of her own heartbeat up in her head. This was almost as bad as the first time, so many years ago. The night air was cooling down rapidly out here, but Nat hardly felt anything.
So what did you find in the boss's storage?
She asked, more to keep certain thoughts away from herself than out of real curiosity. Liam didn't turn around, but he answered anyway.
Bones, books, blood, some stuff you don't need to know. He's far more dangerous than you can even imagine, Nat. After this is done, do me 2 more favors. Don't let the necklace touch your bare skin, and take a few weeks off if possible. I'm afraid the town will turn into a graveyard.
Natalie nodded, then looked on as Liam's feet stopped in the headlights of the car, right in front of the dugout grave. She could see his whole body trembling.
I didn't think it would be this bad.
Nat heard him mumble as she stepped up behind him. There was no getting out of this now. She would normally tell the people once they were in this position, but tonight the words didn't even enter her mind. This wasn't a normal job. In front of her was Liam. She remembered good times and the bad, and felt herself wavering a bit.
This has to be done.
Nat said, and tried to keep her voice steady.
I'll make it quick and clean. Promise.
The man standing there shifted his shoulders, then turned his head to face her one last time. His mouth was half open, his lips were trembling. In the headlights of her car, she could see the fear written all over his face.
I didn't think it would be this bad.
He repeated the words from before, only this time he wasn't talking to himself.
Remember, don't touch it with your bare skin.
She nodded, and the man turned to the grave again. He dropped to his knees, and she could see his hands now behind his back, fingernails digging into his palms. His heavy breathing suddenly stopped, and Nat could see the same thing happening as with so many others. Liam calmed down. He was kneeling there, bent over the grave, now breathing almost normally, while the shaking stopped. Nat lifted the gun as she took another half step. Her own hands were trembling. She breathed out, and her fingers squeezed the trigger. The bang echoed over the dark and empty desert. And with it, Nat felt a single tear drop onto the dusty ground. The office she was standing in smelled like cigarettes and cheap aftershave. Behind the big desk with 3 screens sat the man she had come here to meet.
Hey, you did great.
The deep voice said, but Natalie felt nothing but irritation at the words. How did he know? What if she had let Liam go? No one had followed them out into the desert, and they had to be suspicious of her, right? But no, the man seemed pleased, as if he already knew. Her hand reached into her pocket, and she could see the man growing stiff for a moment before she pulled out the small, bloody handkerchief covering the stained necklace. She didn't believe in it, Nat told herself, but something in her seemed to disagree. Back there, by the grave, she had felt it. The moment she had touched a small piece of jewelry, even with the cloth around it, this cold and ominous dread had gripped her. During the drive back, she had felt a presence in the car with her. like someone sitting in the back seat, staring at her all the time. And now it felt like there was someone else in the room. Someone who was hiding. She threw the small bundle onto the desk right next to the man's hand and watched his eyebrows rise.
What's this?
Proof, she replied.
I hated doing this job, but it had to be done, right?
She watched the man smirk at her, then nod. Of course he would agree. Those had been his words. Nat studied the man closely. His eyes were back on the screens, and he was clicking around with his mouse.
I'm gonna take a few weeks off. This one really took it out of me.
She informed him, but the man didn't even look up.
Of course you should. I'll contact you with your next job in a month's time. How does that sound, huh?
Nat nodded, then turned away. Without the necklace in her pocket, she suddenly felt free and light like a feather.
Hey, I don't think I have to say this, but just in case, don't do anything stupid. Especially after a draining job like the last one. We're practically a family here, right?
She rolled her eyes, but didn't turn around or even slow down her steps. There was a mirror right next to the door, so she knew the man could see her. It didn't matter. The strange new voice seemed to promise. His fingers were already reaching out to the blood-stained handkerchief. Natalie opened the door to the office and left quickly, just as a burly man stepped past her and into the room. No one greeted her on her way out. No one even spoke a word. She didn't wait around to find out what was happening either. This voice warned her not to turn and stay, to just keep walking. Nat did what it told her. It sounded almost like Liam. Her steps neither sped up nor slowed down. Not even as the light bulbs began to flicker, just as she reached the entrance to the old and shabby building. And the screams above her started to ring out.